It was a quiet Friday evening in Bristol, but inside one small family home, screams tore through the walls. Then, silence. A moment later, a sound that would haunt the neighbors forever. At the top of the stairs, a young child stood frozen, watching his father collapse to the floor, while his mother whispered, "Please, don't die." By the time police arrived, she was already scrubbing the blood from the tiles. It was the evening of March 25th, 2022, in the quiet Bristol suburb of Tingswood. Music from a nearby pub drifted through open windows, laughter mixing with the chill of spring. Inside one semi-detached home, however, the air was thick with shouting. A neighbor would later tell police, "I heard her scream, then him say, 'Stop, Abby, please.' Then, nothing. Seconds later, the sound of breaking glass, a heavy thud, and silence. Upstairs, a little boy froze at the bedroom door as his father crumpled to the floor. His mother, wide-eyed and trembling, whispered, "Please don't die." By the time officers arrived, 22-year-old Bradley Lewis was lying on the kitchen tiles, a deep wound over his heart. His partner, Abigail White, met them at the door. Her hands were trembling, her face wet with tears, her shirt spattered red. "He did it to himself," she said, voice cracking. "He grabbed the knife. I tried to stop him." But the scene told a different story. Blood had been wiped from the floor. A roll of kitchen paper sat soaked on the counter. And in the sink, a gleaming kitchen knife, freshly washed. Paramedics tried everything, but the wound was fatal. Bradley was pronounced dead at 8:45 p.m. At first glance, it could have been what Abigail claimed, an impulsive act during a fight. Yet to the officers, who'd seen hundreds of domestic scenes, something about her behavior felt rehearsed. Detectives sealed off the house. They photographed the living room. Tidy. No signs of forced entry. The only chaos sat inside the kitchen. One overturned chair, a trail of footprints in diluted blood. Abigail, pacing in the hall, kept repeating the same phrase. "He stabbed himself, I swear." Her tone switched between sobbing and defensive. When they asked what happened, she said they'd argued after the pub, that Bradley became angry, and before she knew it, he just did it. But her story changed twice within an hour. First, she said he'd grabbed the knife from the drawer. Then, she said he pulled it from the rack. Later, she added, "I think I might have pushed him when he fell." Outside, police whispered to each other. Every version of her story ended with her trying to help, but none explained the cleaned knife or the bruising on Bradley's neck. And while she was being taken to the station for questioning, officers found something upstairs, a child's pajama top, spattered in tiny drops of blood. A witness had seen the couple arguing at the pub just an hour earlier. Abigail had stormed out, shouting, "You'll regret this, Brad." Now, her partner was dead. To understand that night, detectives had to look back into a relationship built on passion, jealousy, and control. Bradley Lewis was 22, a plasterer by trade, a quiet, hard-working father of 4. Friends described him as the calm in the chaos. He adored his kids, especially his little boy, who clung to him like a shadow. Abigail White was loud, confident, magnetic, the kind of woman who made an entrance everywhere she went. Online, she called herself the fake Barbie of Bristol. Her social media life sparkled with selfies, drinks, expensive lashes, and laughter. But offline, things were darker. Abigail had grown up around chaos, broken relationships, fights, and abandonment. Her temper was legendary even in school. When she met Bradley at 19, he saw her as wild but exciting, a whirlwind of affection and fire. Within months, they moved in together, promising to never be like everyone else. But the honeymoon ended fast. Neighbors often heard shouting. Police were called twice for verbal domestic incidents. Each time, she'd cry and say, "We just love each other too much." That love soon turned violent. By early 2021, the fights had become routine. Jealousy consumed Abigail. Jealousy over his phone, his friends, his coworkers. She'd check his messages, accuse him of cheating, then apologize hours later with tears and promises. Bradley confided in a friend that he was scared of her temper. "She's hit me before," he said. But she always says she didn't mean it. One evening, she stabbed him in the leg during a drunken argument. He never reported it. He told paramedics it was an accident. Still, he stayed, for the children, for hope that things would change. In the meantime, Abigail began earning money on OnlyFans. She liked the attention, the validation, the control. But it drove Bradley mad with insecurity. Friends recall him saying, "I just want the old Abby back." Their love became a cycle. Make up, break up, explode. Every week, someone heard screaming from their home. On social media, though, they smiled for selfies. Captions read, "Forever my king." But hidden in her private messages were threats like, "You make me angry enough to kill you. I'll stab you if you leave." And one voice note recovered later by police. "I know I'm capable of it, Brad. I really am." Everyone who knew them saw it coming. No one imagined it would actually happen. That Friday began like so many others. Good intentions, bad endings. They spent the afternoon at the Deer's Rest pub, joined by friends, drinking and laughing. At first. But after a few drinks, tension simmered. Witnesses said Abigail grew angry when Bradley spoke to another woman at the bar. She accused him of embarrassing her, called him names loud enough for half the pub to hear. He tried to leave. She followed, shouting. Outside, she slapped him. He didn't hit back. He just walked home. CCTV later showed her stumbling behind him minutes later, barefoot, still yelling. Back at the house, their argument reignited. Bradley told her he wanted space, that he couldn't live like this. She accused him of cheating again. One of their daughters later told police she heard her mother scream, "You won't leave me. You'll never leave me." Then came a heavy thud, a child's cry, and silence. At 8:20 p.m., neighbors saw Abigail pacing outside, phone in hand. She called a friend first, not an ambulance. "Brad's hurt himself," she sobbed. "He's bleeding." Minutes later, she dialed 911, telling operators that Bradley had put the knife in himself. Her tone was oddly calm. When officers arrived, she led them to the kitchen, hands shaking. They asked where the knife was. She pointed to the sink. "I cleaned it because I panicked." One detective later said, "She didn't look shocked. She looked rehearsed." As forensic teams worked through the night, evidence began to dismantle her story. There were no defensive wounds on Bradley's hands, no angle consistent with self-infliction. The knife had gone in deep, straight, precise, through the heart, and upstairs, a child whispered to an officer, "Mummy hurt Daddy." By morning, the case that began as a tragedy looked unmistakably like murder. The morning after Bradley's death, detectives returned to the small Kingswood home. The crime scene tape fluttered in the wind, yellow against gray stone. Inside, the air was heavy with bleach and silence. The smell of cleaning chemicals lingered stronger than blood. In the living room sat Abigail White, wrapped in a blanket, mascara streaked, shaking her head as officers entered. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered. He did it himself." But investigators had already seen too much to believe that. As the hours passed, Abigail's story kept shifting. At first, she said Bradley stabbed himself. Then, She said they struggled over the knife and it slipped. Later, she claimed she couldn't remember anything at all. Detectives knew this pattern too well: panic, confusion, denial. But Abigail's behavior wasn't panic, it was performance. When they informed her that Bradley had died, she gasped, covered her face, then moments later asked, "Can I go home now?" In the kitchen, crime scene specialists found the evidence she thought she'd erased: traces of blood on the mop, on the handle of the sink, and beneath her fingernails. The cleaned knife still carried microscopic blood fibers on the hilt. Then came the testimony that broke her story apart completely. Bradley's 3-year-old son, in a soft, frightened voice, told a social worker, "Mummy was angry. She pushed Daddy with a knife." Those 7 words were enough. Police arrested Abigail White for suspicion of murder. In the interview room, she kept her arms folded tight, eyes darting around. For hours, she denied it. Then, as evidence piled up, her tone changed. "I didn't mean to stab him," she said quietly. "I just lost it for a second. I loved him." Detectives asked why she washed the knife, why she lied to the operator, why she called her friends before calling for help. "I panicked," she said again. "I thought if they saw the knife, they'd think I killed him." They already did. Later that night, her phone was seized. What investigators found inside made their stomachs turn. Hundreds of messages, voice notes, and screenshots, all proof that this wasn't a sudden outburst. It was a pattern. Text after text filled with rage. "You make me so mad, I'll kill you one day. If I can't have you, no one will. Don't push me, Brad. You know what I'm capable of." And then one voice note just weeks before his death. "One day, you'll see how much damage I can really do." The more they read, the clearer the picture became. Abigail hadn't simply lost control. She had been losing it for months. Detectives reconstructed their lives through phones, CCTV, and witness statements. It told a chilling story. Abigail's jealousy had consumed her. She checked Bradley's location constantly, scrolled through his messages, and accused him of cheating even when he was working late. She'd smashed his phone, broken his car window, and once hit him in front of their children. Friends had begged Bradley to leave. He tried, twice, but always went back, telling his parents, "She'll change. I just want the kids to have both of us." But Abigail didn't want peace. She wanted control. Days before the killing, she'd searched online for stab wounds and how long it takes to die from a heart stab. It was no accident. It was a storm waiting to break. The case reached Bristol Crown Court in May 2023. By then, Abigail was 24. Her hair had gone platinum blonde again, her face carefully made up for the cameras. Reporters called her the OnlyFans killer. The prosecution laid out every detail: the texts, the cleaned knife, the witness testimony from her own child, and the cold, deliberate lie she told to police. They argued that she had full control, that she knew exactly what she was doing. Abigail's defense painted a different picture. Her lawyer described her as a broken woman suffering from borderline personality disorder, traumatized, impulsive, and unstable. They claimed she didn't intend to kill Bradley. She only wanted to scare him. But the jury watched the CCTV from the pub that night, her anger, her shouting, her threats. Then they heard her voice notes. Her words spoke for themselves. "I'll stab you if you leave me." "I mean it this time." The prosecution's final line echoed through the courtroom. This was not loss of control. This was punishment. When the verdict came, the courtroom fell silent. Guilty. Murder. Abigail White was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 18 years before parole. Bradley's parents wept quietly. They had sat through every day of the trial, hearing the words they already knew were true, that their son's death wasn't an accident. It was a choice. In a statement, his mother said, Bradley loved her, even after everything she did, but she didn't love him back, not the way she should have. Outside court, a friend whispered to reporters, he was always trying to fix her. He just didn't realize she was going to break him instead. Their 4 children were placed in the care of relatives. The youngest still asked when Daddy would come home. Abigail's jealousy was never passion, it was power. Bradley's forgiveness was never weakness, it was hope. But hope can be dangerous when it blinds you to the truth. Abigail once bragged online, calling herself Fake Barbie. In the end, that mask defined her, a woman desperate to be seen, even if it meant destroying everything around her. Bradley never got to see his children grow. He never saw justice served. But his story, their story, now stands as a warning about the red flags we ignore until it's too late. She said she loved him, the prosecutor told the jury. But what she really loved was control. If this case moved you, please take a moment to hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next true crime story we uncover. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.